in the 1970s, the teachers in our lineage, in the Vipassana lineage, Sharon Salzberg and Joseph Goldstein, invited the Dalai Lama to come to the United States for the first time and teach in their meditation center. And he had time for questions and answers. And one of the questions was, how do you deal with self-hatred? And so the guy who was translated the question, and then he translated it again, and then there was a sort of like shuffling and rustling, and it was getting kind of like nobody in the hall knew what was going on for quite some time as the translator and the Dalai Lama were going back and forth. The Dalai Lama didn't know what self-hatred was, and the translator was explaining it to him. And when he finally got the concept, he turned to the audience and said, how many of you have experienced this? And every single person put up their hand. And the Dalai Lama just started to cry. And he ended the teaching there. And self-hatred is cultural. It's a construct. And we can deconstruct it. Leaving with you with that, I want to take some time. One thing I love when people are willing to do is share things that were happening as you were in meditation or sitting. I'd love to hear about what's going on with you. Or if you have questions about anything I said, about insight meditation and Vipassana, I'm happy to answer those questions too.
So just like probably everybody, I have a lot of noticing when I sort of messed up. But there's one particular pattern of messing up that I find kind of funny, which is I'll do something right, and then I'll, like, not right, but I'll be like, oh my god, look, I was doing crap! I got all excited, and then I stopped again.
Yeah. What did you label that when you were noting?
I thought it was kind of cute. Like, it's kind of like when you have a little kid who's like bragging about something and they like won't stop. They're like, did you guys see, like, I caught that ball? And you're like, yeah, you sure did. It was like, I kind of feel like that. I'm like, no.
So I'm gonna offer a word and then you edit it to make it the right word. If I label that joy, is that correct?
Joy is a little strong, I think. Like a volume turned down on delight, though.
Okay, a little delight.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can note that, right? A little delight, and then back to the breath, right? I'm focusing a lot on the stuff we don't want. Sometimes something nice happens.
Well, that is, but to me that then represents something I didn't want, because I realized that I was doing it. I was like, well, great. Now that I went and realized it, now I'm thinking about the fact that I was doing it. I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah, and so traditionally, what we would label that is grasping or wanting, which, like anything else, you name and then you go back to the breath. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that in.
Meditating around other people was surprisingly way easier than meditating by myself at home. I felt like I was way less aware of like the environment around me, because it's just like, I don't know, I'm in a room somewhere. There's other people in the room. It's like, I don't know, when you're sitting like in the crowd for a lecture or something, versus like if you're just sitting at home and you're like, I'm now sitting on the couch in the living room. Like you kind of stop noticing the lecture hall at a certain point, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I found that surprising. I thought it would be harder to meditate around other people.
I'm curious if people relate to that. Does anyone find it easier to sit when we're together? Yeah, I do too. Yeah. I'm saying sit to mean meditate, but any shape is fine.
One thing that I was thinking about, that I've been thinking about all week since last Saturday, when I talked about my thoughts and the language I used to talk about my thoughts as children, and specifically like a sad child, right? And like this decision of ignore or attend. And that feeling of being kind too is just enabling, even though it's not. But then I also don't necessarily want to be thinking these things. And so after last week, I tried to think about like, is there other metaphorical language that has more than two options, right? So instead of engage or ignore, like, are there other symbols that have multiple options? And the one that felt most eye-opening to me was to think of thoughts not as children or anything anthropomorphized, but as a campfire, because you don't have to put it out, but you also don't have to feed it. But you can still see it and be like, I acknowledge the fire's there, but I'm not going to add kindling to this thought. I'm just gonna let it burn. And then if there is a thought I want to think about, I can add kindling. And so that felt, I feel like de-anthropomorph or personifying my thoughts, that I'm gonna be a neutral campfire instead of like a child I have to care about, actually was like really helpful for me. And it took away that moralizing aspect of like, I'm a bad person if I do this with my thought, if I don't take care of the thought properly. Instead, it's just as a fire, I'm gonna let it burn on its own. I'm not gonna try to like pour water on it, but I'm also not going to like purposefully add kindling to this unhelpful thought. And so that is something that I really, really enjoyed working with in myself this week. So I'd like to share that just in case it's helpful for anyone else too.
Well, I love that. Like, that is so smart. And it really points to the thing that we're talking about where the freedom is in the wisdom. Yeah, you found it, and it gave you some freedom.
Well, and because last week the thing you noted about my effort to put things into categories was coming from this place, or you asked me does it feel like it's coming from a place of control, and it very much did. And so being able to name that and notice like there actually is a different, like you can let go of control but still have agency to decide what you're adding to. Yeah, that's just been really helpful.
I'm so glad you said that. It points to a thing that I was just listening to a teacher talk about, the idea of sovereignty, right? That fire is there whether you want it or not. Your sovereignty is in whether you douse or feed it.
Yes.
Yeah, really nice.
Or just sit by it.
Or just sit by it, yeah. Or let it sit by you.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you brought that back, and I hope that's useful to other people too. Anyone else want to ask or share?
I guess I'm wondering a little bit about noticing, because it kind of seems like, I don't know, just use a trite phrase, a watched pot never boils. It's just sort of like, if you focus on it, it's not as good as like, okay, I'm gonna do whatever I need to do in the kitchen and kind of keep an eye on it a little bit. That might be more realistic and more workable.
And is that how you're doing your noting, to sort of like notice but really focus on what I'm doing?
It somehow seems like a little bit lighter pressure to notice.
Yeah.
Might work better,
Yeah, I like that, and I think there's wisdom in that too, right? Because there's a temptation to be like, I'm gonna grab all the thoughts, nail them down, name them, right? Which is striving and uncomfortable, I think, for most people. But and also I love that you said a watched pot never boils. Because when I think of thoughts, I don't want them to boil. I want to watch them just enough. Right? I want them to stay simmering. So I like that idea. But yes, I think there's a lot of wisdom in gently noting. And also you can note how you're noting, right? Like if you're like, oh, I'm noting in a way that is so striving and so grasping. It's good to know. You might say, oh, over-efforting. One of my favorite things about being with everybody here is that so much wisdom comes in this direction, right? We sit, and then I get to enjoy all the wisdom that came out of your sit and what you have, and like to pick up new metaphors is incredibly helpful because different metaphors work for different people, which is great. And because I've had such a good experience doing this with all of you, this is M. We're working on this together. We're working with Calvary to have a space for us to meet weekly or bi-weekly to sit and do Dharma talks going forward. So if you'd like to be included in that, please make sure I have your email address before you leave so that I can let you know what's going on. Either way, I am thrilled that you came and spent this time with us. It brings me so much joy, both to benefit from your wisdom and also just to sit with you. There are so few opportunities in life to share time and presence, these like very precious resources, and so when you share them with me, it means a lot. Thank you very, very much for being here. If you want to make any kind of donation, there's a bucket and Venmo there, and also there's a paper and a pad if you want to give your email address so that Em and I can get in touch with you in the future. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.